Episode 17, here on July 31st. We are less than 20, or a little under 24 hours away from the conclusion of the MLB trade deadline. And Max Scherzer and David Robertson are no longer Mets already. The sell-off has begun. Rob, how we doing, man?
Another day, another year of Mets baseball, and
Yeah.
not a good result in 2023 so far. So, and I just read a tweet saying that the Mets might keep Mark Canha. So, more head scratching moves from this franchise, and I can't really. I'm at a loss for words, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I totally saw the Robertson thing on the wall. I guess maybe some people expected it to come a little bit later on in the process, not 5 days before the deadline. The
Mm-hmm.
Scherzer thing, it almost seemed like Verlander was going to go to the Rangers, and then all of a sudden Scherzer had that talk with the brass, and then all of a sudden he was out the door.
Yep.
Um, but it kind of reminded me of the whole Kevin Durant situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go talk to them, and all of a sudden it was like boom, there was a trade. But
Yeah.
listen, before we dive into all that's good and not good in Metsland,
Yeah.
remember to give us a follow on Instagram, uh, Twitter, or X, whatever you like to identify it as. Um, YouTube and TikTok. We are at Cup of Mets. Again, that's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And then also be sure to rate and subscribe to our podcast here, whether it be on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcast content. So as we mentioned, Max Scherzer out the door already, one of our big cogs. The Mets dealt Scherzer to the Rangers 2 days ago. Um, I will dive into that. But first off, the more pressing thing here is, as it's, midday on July 31st, is that there's a lot of talks about Justin Verlander. Um, I made it clear in a post that I made the other day on Instagram that I do not want the Mets to trade Justin Verlander. I saw, as I said before, I saw the Scherzer thing potentially happening. I saw the Robertson thing happening. I do not want to see Justin Verlander dealt.
No, listen, I agree. I mean, again, his base salary is at a whopping $43 million. I understand that, but the Mets, if they do deal him, they would have to eat a chunk of that money, but in order to get something in return. But again, I think just looking forward, just looking ahead in 2024, if you do trade a guy like Verlander, who's gonna cap all? Again, who do we have left in the rotation? Obviously Senga, and then if the Mets don't deal him, Jose Quintana. But after them two, you're looking at guys like Peterson and McGill. It's like the lack of depth just shows in the starting pitching. So, again, if Verlander is traded, I would hope the Mets have a plan to sign a couple free agents next year and to bolster that rotation for 2024.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing for me is that there aren't many teams that you mentioned $43 million. There aren't a lot of teams that can take on that money. So the Mets would have to get creative.
Exactly.
There's only two real teams that can take that money on currently that are interested in them, and
Uh-huh.
that's the Astros and that's the Dodgers, right? And there are other teams that probably would want him, but the Mets would have to eat so much money. And that's maybe like a team like the Orioles or even potentially the Brewers or the Reds.
Yeah, or like the
Um,
Reds. Again, familiarity with Verlander and the Astros, and then again, Dodgers, another big market team with a lot of pitching under their belt.
Kate Upton in
Again, two
LA.
yeah, two very good fits. But again, if you're looking at a Mets fan who wants to be competitive in 2024, you would keep Justin Verlander so he could be that veteran presence for your rotation next year. And then you only would have to fill in two or three holes opposed to filling in three or four.
Yeah, and I think the thing to me is that Justin Verlander still has the juice. We're seeing it.
He
We're
does.
seeing it. He
He
still has
does.
it.
Yeah.
And
I
I
told
don't.
you he's starting to get going, man.
Yeah, he's starting to get going.
Yeah.
July was absolutely superb for him. He had an ERA close to one in the month of, or somewhere in the ones throughout the month of July, and he's
Mhm.
really just been on cruise control. He picked up his 250th career victory yesterday, but did say in the post game that he was shocked about the fact that Scherzer was dealt, and he's going to have a talk with the brass in terms of what the future holds. but he also does hold that no trade clause. And a lot of
Mhm.
people are saying that he does want to win in New York. Therefore, he's not just going to waive his no trade clause to go to anywhere. So that's why, realistically, we say the teams like the Orioles and the Reds, teams that have prospects that can be dealt and that are competitive, but realistically, he would probably only go to, as you said, a familiar spot in Houston or LA where he has the type of New York type of fame and whatnot. But to me, you said it before. There's Sanga, there's Quintana, there's Peterson, there's McGill. You're going to have to fill so many more holes, and you're kind of setting yourself up for a much more active offseason.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, something that I think that the Mets should do is they should hold Justin Verlander, and then as they build up this depth, right? And we'll touch upon the Mets got Luisangel Acuna, Ronald Acuna's younger brother, for Max Scherzer, but the Mets are bolstering up their farm system, right?
Hmm.
And with some of the other, whether it's Pham, Canna, potentially Rayleigh, if some of them get dealt, the farm system's going to continue to bolster. And along with the draft, where the Mets signed essentially 97% of their picks,
Yeah.
the farm system is bolstered. So what I would do is I would hold Verlander and then make Kevin Parada completely available this offseason and maybe move him to the Guardians for a Shane Bieber and make that a 1-2 punch of Verlander, Shane Bieber, and then a Kodai Senga, right? Um,
Hmm.
that's something that I would do. And I think that another player that would be on the open market is Dylan Cease of the Chicago White Sox. I think that he's
Yeah.
another example. So I think that, to me, if the Mets trade Justin Verlander, they're punting 2024.
No, definitely. I mean, again, like I said before, if you trade Verlander, you essentially got to put more money into, the starting rotation next year. Obviously, again, there's a lot of sexy names in the free agent pool, but again, I like that plan when you keep a guy like Verlander, then essentially that makes a guy like a prospect like Parada more expendable, and then you can create another 1-2 punch, a younger one.
Yep,
Granted, Verlander is going to be 41 next year, but again, a guy like Shane Bieber, he's got a lot of high upside still, and he's one of the best pitchers in the American League. I mean, a guy that I look at for next year, obviously, Otani is the big fish, the big shark for next year's free agency in terms of starting pitching and just players in general. But a guy I like and I would want the Mets to consider is a guy like Julio Urias.
yep.
Again, he's going to be 27. He's making 14.2 million this
In his
year.
last year of arbitration, so it's
Yeah, in
probably
his
going to be
last
like
year of
20
arbitration,
something.
exactly. Again, lefty, power lefty. I just love the way he pitches. Honestly, he made his debut against the Mets, right? I
Yep,
believe. And again, ever since then, he's been kind of taking off. And again, even in that World Series, the 2020 World Series, he went from a guy that could give you innings to being a potential closer when
absolutely.
it really matters. When it really matters. But again, I'm talking long term. I'm talking 2024 and beyond. I think a guy like Julio Urias would be a nice compliment to a guy like Verlander as well.
No, without a doubt. And I
Yeah.
think that there's Urias. There's also a guy like Aaron Nola that's out there.
Yeah, I like
Nola's,
Aaron Nola.
yeah,
Yeah.
so do I. Nola's a little bit older. He also has a ton of innings on him. The
Mhm.
Phillies don't really know how to operate pitching. But I think Urias is kind of like a Juan Soto situation. They broke into the league so early that they're hitting free agency at such a prime time in their career. And we
Mhm.
saw what Julio Urias did last year in 2022,
Yeah.
nearly won the Cy Young. We saw what he did in the 2020 World Series. And
Mhm.
then now he's putting on a show here in the second half, and he's being, labeled now as a second half pitcher. Um,
Exactly.
but something that Billy Epler did say yesterday, and I'm going to have to agree with him, is that even though Steve Cohen has money flowing out of everywhere,
Yeah.
you don't want to always, yeah, you don't want to always rely on the free agent market. So you want to be able to use that to enhance your team
Yeah.
while being able to develop the talent and being able to then develop talent that's tradable to then trade for pieces. And that's what teams that have sustainability do, like the Braves, like the Dodgers. And I think that that's a good direction for the Mets to go. I just think that when you look at 2024,
Hmm.
The Mets have a roster that can win. Obviously, right now it doesn't look good. You have to hope Marte and McNeil bounce back, but the offense is pretty much straight, right? You gotta add a big bat in the middle of the order. But
Hmm.
with the young kids, you're going to be competitive and you're going to fight for a playoff spot.
Hmm.
To trade a Justin Verlander, who's clearly going to be a number one next year, again, as I said, would do such a disservice and would truly not only set the Mets back, but he's the type of professional you want in that clubhouse as well.
No,
And
definitely. Hmm.
and I think that he is the type of guy that um I'm going to be honest, I think that when he's going to talk to the team brass, even though people are saying, scouts are saying and insiders are reporting that talks getting louder about him potentially being traded, I feel like the Mets almost want to go into next year with Verlander as if they did this year with Scherzer, right?
Yeah.
This go into the second year of his contract then and see where the team's at. Hopefully, get better production than we got from Max Scherzer this year, of course, but then kind of go from there. And I'm really praying that's what happens because I think I personally would fucking be so pissed if the Mets traded Justin Verlander because then you're saying to yourself, all right, realistically, we're looking at 2025, 2026, and that's not necessarily what we were being told by Steve Cohen. The other thing when it comes to Justin Verlander and those two teams that we mentioned, the prime teams, the Dodgers and the Astros, is that the Astros don't have the greatest farm system. Therefore, the Astros are going to have to trade from their major league roster. A guy that I love is Hunter Brown. But the thing
Hmm.
is that if you're trading Hunter Brown, who's made massive strides, for a Justin Verlander, it doesn't really make sense. It all almost offsets each other in a way, right? So I don't think the Astros may have the pieces to get that deal done because they would be trading a lot of their major league talent. A team like the Dodgers, though, they have the prospects, as you said, they're loaded. They're loaded. But to me, the man that cannot be, the player that has to be included in a trade is Bobby Miller. And that's a right-handed arm that the Dodgers are kind of holding firm on when it comes to trade talks, not only with Verlander and other teams, but I think the ball is really in the Mets court right now, right? Bobby Miller this year has made 11 starts, 6-2, 4.37 ERA, and 59 strikeouts, and 59 and two-thirds of an inning. He was their number one prospect. Um, I'm hearing different scenarios, and to me, you got to say the ball's in our court. They want Justin Verlander. They want that real impact player. All right, then give us Bobby Miller. That's the only way that I would do a trade like this.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta if in order to get something, you gotta give up something. So, I think Bobby Miller would be a hell of a return. He did start against the Mets back in on the 16th of July. He only went 4 2/3, but you seen the velocity, you see the nastiness, you see
Mm-hmm.
again, you see the potential.
Yep.
24 years old, that would be a nice addition to our staff. And again, it does make us younger. It does give us a power arm to go, to head into 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and my thing too though is that I'm not just doing, hey, it's Scherzer for Acuna again. I'm saying
Mm-mm.
I want more than Bobby Miller. That's why
No,
I
yeah,
want to
and
make it
again,
hard.
that's yeah, no, definitely, and that's the best thing about having the richest owner in baseball. He could literally eat the whole contract and get again and whoever they discuss. Again, I like Gavin Stone.
Yeah.
Again, he's in AAA. 24 years old. Another guy that again has a 55 overall in his scouting grades. Again, two power arms at least. I mean, again, the Mets, they're making these moves right now and they're getting a lot of position players. But I think again, if they're going to trade a guy like Verlander, they got to get an arm or two back.
They got to get, yeah, and they have to get arms that are more
Yeah,
major league ready. And as
yeah.
you said, a guy like Gavin Stone sitting in
Well,
AAA,
Ryan,
Ryan Pepiot, he's another
yeah,
one, and he had a cup of coffee last year as well,
yeah.
or just last year. He has not been called up this year, but last year
Mhm.
he went 3-0. in
Yeah.
9 games, 7 games start with a 3.47 ERA. So Ryan is somebody that could be. And then another name that's been mentioned is the likes of Maddox Bruns, who's in high A ball right now. He's
Lefty.
a lefty. Yeah.
205. Wow. Lefty
Yeah.
205, 6'2", ETA 2025,
Yeah.
fastball 60, curveball 60, scouting grade overall is a 45. But again, he is in high A ball and pitcher from Alabama, definitely a baseballer, definitely a gamer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then from there, you would be able to maybe put Bruns,
Yeah.
obviously in Brooklyn, and then you would be able to have Bobby Miller be in
Yeah.
Queens to start
What's
next
his
year.
name?
But
Got called up. Blade Tillwell.
Blade Tidwell, what?
He got called up to Double A.
Oh, I'm thinking that you're saying that he got called up to the major leagues.
No, no, no,
I'm like,
no,
holy shit, that's a
no.
quite a fucking jump. I
Because
literally was,
you're talking about the other guy from the
I was,
Dodgers
I
being
was
from
about,
Brooklyn.
I was about to say to you, yo, let's go to Brooklyn because Jet Williams is there now. Blake Tidwell was
Yeah,
there. Alex Ramirez.
they got a stacked squad.
We should go to Coney Island.
I've
We should go to Coney Island, definitely,
been there
without a doubt.
before. Honestly, I'm down.
Yeah, let's do it. It's a
No.
date. It's a date, but just as friends. So, as we mentioned before, and everybody knows, the Mets dealt Max Scherzer for Ronald Acuna's younger brother, who's 21 years old. He's 5'8". His name is Luisangel Acuna. He is the 44th overall prospect on MLB Pipeline. He is immediately inserted into the second slot for the Mets. Kevin Parada holds that first slot. What was your initial reaction when you heard it? Because I was at a wedding
Yeah,
and I found out through Cup of Mets. I found out through us and something that you posted. What was your initial reaction there and kind of like the aftermath? How you feeling about that?
I mean, again, I kind of saw it coming. Um, did I think it was going to happen right after he spoke to the team brass? No, I didn't think so at all. But my initial reaction though, like I said, I saw it coming a little bit. My initial reaction was to look at your trade proposal from back in the day, that post, just to see if you got any players right.
I did.
And again, it's funny. I was talking to one of my kids about this when I was coaching, that the Mets should have packaged Robertson and Scherzer
Yeah.
to Texas,
Yeah.
and maybe we would have got a little more. But the fact that I'm not gonna say you were one for one, but you got one name in there, and that's Luisangel Acuna. I think that's a sexy pick, and again, top 50 prospect. He's instantly number two in
And
our in
he's
our in our 2023 rankings. And I mean, again, the Mets had to do what they had to do. It's better for both parties, and again, am I surprised? Not at all.
and he's also going to be ready next year.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I
And he
mean?
can play
And
center.
he could play center. He could play
Yeah.
second base. He's a shortstop by trade, but he can play
So
second as
so that
well.
that's my thing, bro. I saw that he plays second, and I just instantly thought like McNeil to the outfield, and
Yeah,
Luis second. Right.
exactly, exactly. And then maybe
Yeah.
who knows, maybe if when Acuna's ready and McNeil's in the outfield, then maybe you try to, I don't know, try to find a trade partner for Starling Marte and get rid of that
Yeah.
contract. You know what I
And
mean?
and
So
again, Marcana apparently. I mean, again, I just read this that he has a team option next year, so maybe that's why they're holding tight on him or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But again, you bring a guy like him back, it's like you got the same outfield again, which I'm okay with. Again, then maybe you bring in another bat, like you said, and we're off.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I also agree. I mean, I did put the proposal down that the Mets should have put Scherzer and Robertson together.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Mets love Marco Vargas, and I do as well. He's a very highly touted prospect
Mhm.
among scouts in rookie ball. Same with Ronald Hernandez. So
Yeah.
I'm happy about that trade. Don't care that it's in the division, but the Mets may have been able to get more bang for their buck. It was so funny though because when I was at the wedding,
Yeah.
I was talking to like anybody who I knew baseball. I was like, yo, Max Scherzer got traded. Max Scherzer got traded. They're like, oh shit, oh shit. And it was the only thing that I could think about until I found out what the return was. Because there was talks about Jack Leiter, there was talks about Spencer Walcott,
Well, yeah,
And
no, there was a lot of names thrown
and
around.
Thomas Sagizi, who went to
Yeah,
St. Louis. So
there's another. Yeah, he's like a double A hitting machine.
and he went to St. Louis for Jordan
Yeah,
Montgomery. So I was like, I went up to like four different people. I was like, yo, the Mets got Al Leiter, son. The Mets got Jack Leiter. And they're like,
yeah,
no way. And then I come up to them like 5 minutes later. No, I'm just kidding. They got Acuna's younger brother. They got Acuna's
yeah.
younger
You saw
brother.
like Brock Porter's name thrown in there.
Yeah.
You
Brock
saw
Porter.
a lot of big names in terms of prospects from the
Yeah.
Rangers.
Yeah. And I said it, I mean, I was talking about Verlander, and I was talking about Verlander and something that we chucked up on Instagram. But if we're tangoing with the arms that we have, the best arms, and we have the ball in our court, we want Acuna's younger brother. We want an Owen White, who's their second, overall from the Dodgers. We want Bobby Miller. We want Michael Busch. These are
Yeah,
our guys that we signed. And 2022, the Mets really should have went for it at the deadline. They decided not to, and it bit them in the ass in October.
yep,
And 2023, they did not tool up right. And I think they're acknowledging that, right? And I just think that the trade was a combination of them just acknowledging that things had kind of fallen for them,
yeah,
and that they really didn't put the proper pieces together. And I think that's why they're um looking even further down, like as they acquired Vargas and Hernandez, like they're looking to just establish a framework for the organization, so that they can continue to amplify the talent. I want to ask you, many people are very indifferent as to how they feel about how Max Scherzer's tenure with the Mets went. What are your thoughts? What are your takeaways from Max Scherzer's time here in New York? What are some of your favorite moments? But also, is it kind of like a bittersweet, like screw you, see you later, considering what he said at the end, or are you gonna, like what's your feeling?
now, now, listen. I mean, again, I've grown up watching Max Scherzer in a national uniform and in a Tiger uniform. He's that big time pitcher, sexy name. Guy that racks up the strikeouts. I mean, his tenure with the Mets wasn't pretty, but again, he did post a career low ERA last year. Again, he pitched like again, he pitched great in 2022, but when it really mattered, it didn't show. He didn't show that Max Scherzer swag. I mean, again, his presence though was, again, everyone respected him. Competitor. I love how competitive he is, and again, he's a psycho, but
Yeah,
in a good way, in a great way, and he's like again, he feeds off people feed off him, and again, thank you for the 101 win season. But again, I'm when I think of Max Scherzer in my eyes, like I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring it up. Like I think of the playoff game when he gave up 7 runs in
and we
three
happen to
innings,
be there.
and we happened to be there. My first ever playoff game. So again, that's what I'm gonna think of. But again, thank you for being the class act in terms of a competitor and just pitching your balls off whenever you could, honestly. But again, bittersweet, yes, definitely. Because again, I wish it was a little better. I wish you at least had us in the divisional series. But other than that, it is what it is at this point. Thank you, and
Yeah.
we'll see you. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah. A lot of people are like reckoning it to the Tom Glavine situation. I don't put those two. Tom Glavine had two good seasons for us.
Yeah.
And then he really just kind of sucked, and he had a longer contract than he had a longer contract than Scherzer. But you brought up the playoff game. I was also 12 years old when
Yeah.
the Mets collapsed in 2007, when Glavine gave up the 7 runs in the first inning. And
Uh,
that was the closest thing to it, that playoff game last year. It was like we were so psyched. And by the third inning, we were like, yo, do we just go? Like the
yeah.
at bats are lifeless. Scherzer sucked. But overall, Scherzer made 42 starts in his tenure with the Mets, went 20-9 with a 3.02 ERA. In 253 innings, he struck out 294 batters. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. To me, I think that, thank you, Max. You brought credibility back to the Mets organization. You brought the sense of that superstars can go sign with the Mets and that they can be
Yeah.
successful. Look what happened
Mhm.
last year, 101 wins. But again, yeah, he didn't show up when it mattered most. And that's unfortunate. But we'll see how he does in Texas. But, you know, given what we've seen this year, I mentioned it in the pod last week. He's either been brilliant, just okay, or just downright bad this year.
Yeah.
And if you're getting, the 44th overall prospect in baseball and you get rid of $22 million as well in the process as the Rangers 8, even though the Mets still are on the hook for 35, again, I think that it all worked out and Scherzer can go compete. And again, I loved him as a competitor, loved rooting for him, but he's a big reason why the Mets are where they're at today in terms of like in the standings. So
Yeah.
I don't, I don't, that's why I kind of found it odd when he was like, yeah, I want to talk to the team brass. It was like, dude, you had a good start. Like you sucked 3 starts ago. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, but thanks, Max.
So another trade that went down in Mets land. A couple days ago, actually to start the week, David Robertson was traded to the Miami Marlins for second baseman Marco Vargas and Ronald Hernandez, the first
Yeah.
baseman.
Yeah. First baseman
Yeah.
catcher.
Yeah, and two very, 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 very young prospects. Happened really early in terms of the trade deadline timeline. Again, David Robertson to the Miami Marlins. Boz, again, what are your thoughts on that? What the timing, the trade itself, the prospects that the Mets got?
Well, to me, it was a little interesting because Robertson, you would think, would be one of the top arms on the market, right? And as you get closer to the deadline, teams become more desperate because they lose out on others and potentially the return could have been bigger, whatever. So the timing was the only issue that I have. With that said, I love the return. This is what teams do. This is what successful organizations do. They
Mm-hmm.
they pick the cream of the crop from the young, and the Mets have not been scouting many rookie ball leagues, and they admittedly they've admitted that. Um, and I think that it showed when the Mets dealt Endy Rodriguez in a trade that wound up with them getting Joey Lucchesi, right? And then last year they traded this young man by the name of Hector Rodriguez to the Cincinnati Reds. Both are now top 100 prospects. Endy Rodriguez is in the major leagues, right? So Marco Vargas draws incredible reviews, great bat to ball skills, really smooth up the middle as well. His hitting grade is a 55 out of 70. Therefore, listen, he definitely hits the ball. He's extremely advanced for his age. As Rob said, he's only 18 years old. He's able to, recognize pitches, and really control the strike zone. And again, he is versatile when it comes to up the middle. He can play short, he can play second base. When it comes to Ronald Hernandez, he's got pop, and he's got pop that he can build into as well. Um, when I look at Ronald Hernandez, I look at like a Christian Bethencourt. Um,
Yeah,
and when I look at Marco Vargas, I look at like an Andres Jimenez. Um, uh, but with but with Vargas, I see a little bit more Lindor in him, and I know
yeah,
that that was his favorite player growing up. But
mm-hmm.
the way that he's able to turn on inside pitches as a left-handed batter, if he hits one in the air, he comes off like Lindor, and I like to see that. So to me, listen, I think the return was good immediately. Marco Vargas went to be the 7th overall prospect, and Ronald Hernandez was the 18th overall prospect. So I I think it worked out for all parties. The Mets got who they want, and they also get to see Vargas quite a bit on the backfields, since the Mets and Marlins play each other quite often in the rookie league. So
Yeah,
I think that they got who they wanted and they knew who they wanted. Could they waited a little bit longer? Yeah. Could they have packaged them with somebody? Yeah. But at the end of the day, 39-year-old rental he's going to be a free agent. The Mets can easily re-sign him in the offseason. He loved it here. So
Mhm.
I think that it was a move that the Mets should have made. And I know that he had his first save last night as well as a Miami Marlin. So
Yes,
um,
yes, he did,
did
and
you
it's
did
weird. He's like rocking number 19, and
I know
he's in the teal. Well, they had the whites on, but with the teal stripe, the blue teal stripe, and the orange stripes, it just looked weird. Black hat, but whatever.
what are
Got the
your
job done.
but like what did you think about trading him 5 days prior to the
No,
deadline?
listen. I
Should you
mean,
have held
again, I'm
out
not.
or
No, listen again. Like, and I'm not the best GM in the world. I'd like to think I'm more of a coach than a GM.
yeah, you're not a GM.
No, yes,
Neither
definitely.
am
I'm not a
I,
GM at all. I
so
don't have any credentials, but
yeah.
but regardless of what I think, I just again the timing was crazy. Coming off a win, a couple 5 days before the trade deadline, coming off a win with when Vogelbach hits a go-ahead RBI single. Vibes are probably good in the clubhouse, and then all of a sudden you drop that, especially after a rain delay. You drop that David Robertson has been traded not only to just a regular team, but a team in your division. Again, the return. I didn't know much of these two until we started talking and looking into them and all that. Marco Vargas, I've read that he is a quote unquote complete hitter. So again, that's all we could ask for. Just gamers in the system, bolster that positional farm system. Whether they play infielder, outfielder, or their catcher. Again, can't have too many catchers. I know people were very tight that they got a catcher in return for Robertson with Alvarez and Parada in the system. It doesn't matter. You got to have catchers. You got to have depth throughout all positions. Another thing that I read is that a lot of Major League Baseball executives are very impressed with what Epler's been doing so far, whether it's with the trade with Max Scherzer, whether it's the trade dating back to Eduardo Escobar, whether it's the trade with David Robertson. They've used financial muscle to basically buy better prospects and deepen the system, quote unquote. Jack Ramsey. Thank you, brother. Twitter's the best. But again,
It's not Twitter, it's
shit,
X.
X, sorry, whatever. It's the little things that are going to make the Mets competitive throughout years to come, which is bolstering their farm system position by position, whether they're starters or positional players. Again, would I have wanted them to package David Robertson with a guy like Max Scherzer? Yes, that's what I just said in the beginning of this podcast. Yes, I would have wanted that so we get more in return, better players in return, better major league ready players in return. Whatever. It is what it is. It's a deal that Epler in his eyes thought that he couldn't refuse. He pulled the trigger. Now we're here. At the end of the day, I'm gonna root for the Mets. I'm a faithful. I'm loyal. I'm gonna support anything any GM, whoever works for them, is gonna do. I do my research. Again, did I like the timing of it? No, not at all. But did it make the Mets better in terms of the future? Yes. And do I think David Robertson's coming back next year? Yes, I do.
Yeah, so do I. So do I.
That
I have a gut feeling there too.
was a
I
Robbie rant.
Yeah, that was a Robbie rant. I loved it. I think that, and again, the funny thing is, you say like people are like bitching. Oh, we have Alvarez, and then we got Parada down there. We have this guy, that guy. Why are we getting another catcher? Hey,
Yeah.
asshole! It doesn't mean Ronald Hernandez is gonna. It doesn't mean that Ronald Hernandez is gonna end up on the major league squad. That's why
Yeah.
you are accumulating this depth so that you don't have to rely on the free agent market and you can trade. So who knows? Many teams are short on catchers.
Hmm.
Ronald Hernandez could be dealt by this winter and people would be like, "Oh, I get it now." So
Yeah.
it's that's why you normally take the best players available, and Hernandez is another player that the Mets saw quite a bit in their backfield as well. Um, so again, I think that Robertson was going to be traded no matter what. I just found it funny though. I know that we spoke about Scherzer already, but do you think I like why was Scherzer so shocked that Robertson was traded? Was it because it was coming off a win? Was it because the Mets hadn't been playing well, right? They didn't win six in a row. And then Robertson was traded, and then Scherzer immediately after he made his start said, I want to talk to the team brass. I don't understand why we traded our closer, yada, yada, yada. And it's almost like that Robertson trade broke the camel's back. But someone as intelligent as Max Scherzer should know you would better position your team if you trade a rental for prospects because it
Yeah.
develops the team better. I know that he wants to win next year, but he knows Steve Cohen. He knows that Cohen has money. He knows that Cohen will do what it takes to win. Therefore, it's almost like the Robertson trade just snapped Max Scherzer and he was like, that's it. I want to win right now. And 2024, the Mets can compete for a World Series. We have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, definitely. And I think just from Max Scherzer's standpoint, he's under the impression that they're going to compete, they're going to be competitive, they're going to try to make the playoffs every year. In terms of his tenure with the Mets, maybe that's why he reacted like that. But it is very surprising. He surprising that he reacted like that, but it's like he was like oblivious to the situation in a way.
Yeah.
Not seeing that we're 7 games back, we're still more than a couple games under 500, and again, just the team just hasn't, like we've talked about it before. They just haven't had those spurts where they go on runs, where they win 20 out of 20 something games, or
Yep.
or they win 5 and then they lose 3 in a row. It's like you can't have that. They haven't won majority of series this year. It's I just don't. You gotta smell the lemonade or whatever that saying
You
is.
gotta, you just gotta, dude, you gotta recognize where you are.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
I
even
smell the
Scherzer,
lemonade.
and even you gotta smell the lemonade. And even Scherzer said, "I've contributed to this." All right, so what are you bitching about?
Yeah,
Again, he's just a competitor, so
yeah.
whatever. Last
And look at
note,
this. I'm sorry.
last
I'm sorry to
what?
cut you off real
No,
quick. I'm
you
sorry to
go.
cut you off real quick. So the Florida Gulf Coast, the Florida Complex League Mets
You
just beat the
mother,
Cardinals
you mother
9 to
effer.
6.
That's I was gonna say that. Go.
Marco Vargas 3 for 5 RBI and a stolen base. Ronald Hernandez 1 for 1, 3 walks, RBI and a stolen base. That's
There it
crazy.
is. Rob stole my last note on the David Robertson
I
trade.
really didn't do that on purpose.
No, I know, bro. There's no coordinate. Ooh, should
I
have
was
dropped my
on it
pen.
today. I was
There's
on
no.
it today.
Okay, so tomorrow is it. 4 p.m. No more trades after that. Um, how I think the Mets should proceed by trading Jose Quintana and
Whoa.
don't let him make a start tomorrow night in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Have Peterson start. Make it a bullpen game because he threw multiple innings yesterday, but try to find a taker from Quintana.
Hmm.
It's everybody wants starting pitching. It's a premium right now. Try to get what you can get from. He's under contract for next year. Sell, maybe try to see if you could trade Narvaez as well, but
Hmm.
ensure that you trade Tommy Pham since he's a
Okay.
rental.
Yep.
I know that you mentioned in the outset that the Mets are thinking about keeping Mark Canha. I saw
Uh-huh.
that as well. I would trade Mark Canha, even if it's for another little, man that goes in the Florida
Middleman.
Gulf Coast League. I don't care because we, again, won't have control over Canha, and the Mets are just going to buy out because he has an option for next year and it's team
Yeah.
controlled. And then, you know, I don't know. Teams are talking about Rayleigh. I don't want to trade Rayleigh, but how would you proceed?
Well, I don't know if you read this, but I read something that or yesterday after the game that Tommy Pham was told he is not traveling with the team to Kansas City. So
Yep.
I think that's inevitable that he gets dealt before the August 1st trade
And
deadline.
and I would like to just interrupt you
Go
quickly.
ahead. Go ahead.
I did speak with a source yesterday that did say that he
Hmm.
was 99% positive that he was getting dealt. That not Tommy Pham was positive. My source was 99%
Yeah.
positive that Tommy Pham was getting dealt prior to the trade deadline.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
I don't know if something comes to fruition
Yeah.
once we hop off here or whatever, but yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah. Again, and again, bearing any, big moves in terms of Juan Soto and I know Otani's not getting traded, but there were reports that Cody Bellinger was taken off the market. Tommy Pham is the next available bat, in my opinion, in terms of guys that need, outfield help. And also, Randall Grichuk got traded to the Angels. So again, Tommy Pham is the next man up. So I think that's going to happen, whether it's today, whether it's later tonight, whether it's tomorrow before the deadline, whatever. And kudos to you for getting that source. But again, I could see them trading Narvaez. I mean, again, Narvaez very durable. He's been playing more as of late. I thought he was a switch hitter. I guess not. Never mind. But no, I just think Narvaez makes sense. They call up Nito, let it happen. Mark Canha, that one's tough for me because again, Mark Canha is a guy like Tommy Pham, but again, Canha can play first. He plays left, center, and right. I think the Mets would be dumb not to trade him, considering it gets 10.5 million off the books. Granted, if they pay some of that salary or not. But those are my three guys to look out for in terms of getting traded. On my wild card, also, I do want to keep Brooks Raley as well, but my wild card in that bullpen is Adam Ottavino. If they could get something for him, I think Adam Ottavino is shipped off to a different team. But other than that, we'll see.
Yeah, Rob, are you in a rainforest, by the way? I had to bring that up once. I just had to bring that up once.
You
Everyone
seen me
knows.
look one time, right? Because they were
Yeah,
getting loud.
yeah. Rob has two little parakeets for his niece.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I just had to ask, but yeah, I think that again, yes, Tommy Pham's getting traded. I don't know where. It wasn't given to me where, but it was yes, he's dealt. Um, I think a team like the Giants could fit. I think a team like the Mariners could be a fit. And even a club like the Orioles. Now, and even a team like the Reds, Tommy Pham could be a fit for the Cincinnati Reds as well. He can go back to his old stomping grounds there. So he's as good as gone. You just brought up something that I didn't really think about the fact that Mark Canha can play first base as well. Again, I don't think that they exercise the team option next year. So again, they should trade
Trade him.
him.
Yeah, right.
I don't want them to trade Brooks Raley though, because Brooks Raley to me it's in the same boat as Justin Verlander. Why create another hole for yourself? Brooks Raley has shown over the last 2 seasons now, nearly 3 seasons, that he is a legitimate left-handed pitcher. He's not like an Aaron Loop where he's just like a one and done and signs a deal and then sucks. So to me, I want to keep Rayleigh. I think he's owed only $6.5 million next year.
Yeah,
Um,
no, he's had a great year.
and he's had an excellent year. And now he's closing games.
Yeah.
So I keep Rayleigh. Um, Quintana, honestly, with this market, I think the Mets can net like two of a team's prospects between 20 and 30, and still have the other team take money, or maybe just one person and have them take the money, or the Mets can pay down some of his contract. And then Narvaez again. Yeah, there's Tomas Nido in the minors. There's also Michael Perez in the minors. Michael Perez
Yeah.
is, went 4 for 4 and then got sent down. So so I mean, there's definitely things that are in play. And I think the next time that we talk, there's going to be different players within the organization. You and I are going to have to come out with new top prospect charts
Yep.
for the Couple Met squad, because whole bunch of new names in there. There already is. Rob, who's your top prospect right now? I want to ask you because I see a lot of people are throwing Acuna one over Parada. Who do you have one?
No, I'm a Kevin Parada guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Your
that.
first round pick, top 15 overall pick.
Yeah.
Kevin Parada, he can catch, he can play a little outfield. He's been hitting as of late. I heard he got hurt, so he's definitely a Met. But listen, nah, I like Kevin Parada a lot. I think again, if the Mets we're gonna have a nice problem in a couple of years if he bolsters through the system. And I
or if
hate
he
to be that guy. I
or if
hate
he
to be
gets
that guy,
dealt.
but Pete Crow Armstrong just got promoted to AAA.
Ah, boy. Yep. Pete Crow Armstrong.
No,
Yep. Ah, boy. Yep. That was a Brody mistake, or was that
yeah.
Zach Scott?
No, Zach Scott.
It was Zach Scott. Yeah.
Yo, thank you for saying that.
Why?
Because the guy who tweeted it was like, another Billy Epler mistake.
Oh yeah, no, it
Like,
was Zach. Yeah, it was Zach Scott. It was Zach Scott.
dummy.
Um, yeah, but I think that those are just some of the guys that should be dealt.
Yeah.
And we'll end up seeing in the end what prediction wise, Rob. I want you to just give me your predictions right now. Verlander, Quintana, Narvaez, Rayleigh, Pham, and Canha on August 2nd. Who's a Met and who's not? We'll go one by one. Verlander,
He's a Met.
Narvaez,
Fuck. I hate saying this. He's a Met because I know they're not going to trade him.
Pham,
Nah, he's gonna get traded.
Canna,
He's a Met.
Rayleigh,
They're gonna trade him.
Quintana,
He's a Met.
and Ottavino.
He's a Met.
There it is.
All right, so majority of my answers were that they're gonna be Mets. I'm gonna go again. Justin Verlander. What do you think?
Yeah, he'll be a Met.
Okay, Tommy Pham,
Nope.
Mark Canha.
The report today threw me off, but no.
Yeah, right. The report pissed me off a little bit too. But Omar Narvaez,
Yeah.
Adam Ottavino,
Yeah.
and Brooks Raley.
No.
No,
Quintana, I think, might get dealt
then
as well.
Katana.
I think Quintana might get dealt as well. I think it's a very under the radar thing that people aren't talking about right now.
Yeah,
But I think that at 13 million bucks with what he's shown this year and what he did last year, if teams approve of his physicals, I think that Quintana definitely is a prime candidate to get dealt without a doubt.
that's crazy.
All right, Robert. So before we wrap up episode 17, episode 17 of season 2, um, any final thoughts here? It's been a rough last couple days for Met fans, just acknowledging that 2023 is essentially over. But any final thoughts here before we hop off and wrap up?
No, listen, I mean, again, a lot of high expectations to start the year. Unfortunately, yeah, like you said, 2023 seems like it's over. But let's just try to enjoy the rest of our summer, the rest of the baseball season up until, again, 2024. But things to look forward to. I mean, listen, if they make moves, who's going to fill in? Hopefully Ronnie Mauricio gets the call. Hopefully some young arms get a chance.
Mike Vasile.
Yeah, so let's just embrace it. Let's cheer them on. Let's show them what New York, Queens, Long Island's all about, and hopefully 2024 has a better result.
I honestly cannot believe from the night before opening day when we recorded what we were talking about. Now episode 17, we're selling off all of our pieces.
It's crazy.
It's wild. It's wild. But it happens. We've been there before, and hopefully there are better things to come for the Mets in 2024, as you mentioned. Once again, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram, on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. TikTok and YouTube, we are at Cup of Mets. Again, we're at Cup of Mets. And also be sure to rate and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcast content. With that, for Robert Venegas, I'm Ian Bosniak. Everybody, hang in there. Let's hope for 2024's sake, Verlander's still a Met by the next time we chat. And for that, good night, everybody.